Hi there guys, and welcome to another episode of the Cover Zero Show with me, your host Simon Conboy. Today's episode is a game preview and I will be focusing on the Buccaneers Week 8 matchup where they host the Carolina Panthers. Both of these teams in the midst of losing streaks and in pretty dire need of a win. The only real plus for both of them being that this division has really struggled to have any team establish themselves as dominant at this point, so there really is everything to play for. As always, I'm going to go through what I believe to be the key matchups on these rosters, how I expect both teams to game plan, and how I see the game ending up going. So I'm going to start with the Carolina offence and the Buccaneers defence, because these are the two sides of the ball that have been costing these teams big in the last few games. So this matchup, frankly, is likely going to be the one that determines it. If either one of these teams can get out of a relative funk, then that team's going to have a big advantage in this game. Panthers had a couple of games where Cam Newton looked really good. The passing attack looked like it was getting on track. The run game has been abysmal pretty much all year, Cam being the only guy able to have any success running the ball. And the offensive line has just been a real issue. It's been poor for the last few years, but this year I think they're managing to take it to another level. I mean, of course, you've got Cam at quarterback. It's difficult to assess his season at this point because it really has been peaks and valleys. He wasn't as bad as the stat line would indicate last week, but he got very little help and just got flat out beat up. He's not got the most dynamic group. This team does miss Greg Olsen an enormous amount. They've struggled to get Christian McCaffrey involved. Jonathan Stewart's been a non-factor. The run blocking has really been that bad. McCaffrey's had an impact as a short yardage kind of receiver, but they've not really been able to find ways to get him in the open field to make the big dynamic plays I think most were expecting. And much like Stewart, just a non-factor as a runner, although I don't put too much of that blame on him. These are both good backs. I think it's a testament to how bad this line has played. Heading into this week, the doubts for this Panthers offense may be whether Matt Khalil plays and whether Trey Turner plays. It looks like Turner's going to play, which is good news for them. The interior is certainly the strength of this group. Him and Norwell are a fine pair of guards, even if they're not playing as well as they have in the past. Khalil is integral to this team's success, however, and to be honest, with the injuries that he's been dealing with all season, I think the Panthers may, as key as this game is, I think they're probably best off sitting him for this one. They brought him back early from this neck injury. He's aggravated it again. I think for the long term, it may be best if they keep him out of this one. However, if they do play him, I can understand it. It's a big game, and without him, it's really hard to imagine this offensive line having any success. The tackle position has been the issue, though. I have been enormously critical of what this team did in free agency, bringing in Matt Khalil on the kind of money that they did, and just kind of giving him the left tackle job. That he's been a disaster. Darrell Williams on the right hand side, not much better. It's hard to imagine that they'd get worse at the tackle spot than they've been the last couple of years, but they found a way and they're paying for it. You've got this receiver group, and the criticisms that you could level at them before the season, they're still very much the case. Benjamin's having a nice season, but him and Funchess are somewhat similar players. Curtis Samuel, they've not been able to get him integrated into this offense particularly quickly. They don't have much depth beyond that. And of course, with Greg Olsen out, Ed Dixon's done an admirable job, but he's not a threat to take over games. There's a lack of explosion in this group. They're big guys, but they struggle to gain separation. And the games we've seen them have success, it's been because Cam is putting the ball in spots where the smaller defensive backs can't get it. It's difficult to be completing those passes consistently throughout a game like it seems to be required, because there's just very little separation. There's tight windows to throw in. When you're not getting the protection, it can be difficult to squeeze those in there. and it's resulted in a very spotty passing attack. On the Buccaneers side of things, the defence has really let them down over the last 2 weeks, having started the season playing spottily, particularly in the secondary. Last week saw some improvements in the secondary, but this team just keeps finding ways to make mistakes, struggling with basic stuff, tackling, run fits. It's been very frustrating to watch as a Buccaneer fan. At times, whilst this team has struggled to get sacks, there have been times where they've been able to get pressure. It's just been finishing things off. Now, it's going to be a bit more difficult with Noah Spence out for the rest of the season, now on IR. You could see the injury affecting him. The first couple of weeks he was playing quite well. You saw some bursts there, but I think this shoulder's really impacted him. It does leave the Buccaneers mighty thin at pass rusher. It's not a position they were strong at before. Robert Ayers is playing okay. Gerald McCoy's having a strong season. But the rest of this defensive line group haven't really contributed too much. Chris Baker's disappointed so far. The remaining players in the front seven have had problems with injury. Lavonte David's played really well the last couple of weeks. Quan Alexander had a disaster coming back last week. I think with a bit more practice, having played a game last week, he should be... Bless me. He should be better. He's key to this team. We saw last week when he has a bad game, it has a massive impact on this team's ability to stop teams, particularly in the run game. And Kendall Beckwith, they're pretty strong at linebacker if they can get those guys all on the field and playing well. The secondary is a big concern. I've been very critical of the safety position and the way the Buccaneers have approached it. It's pretty clear they don't know who their best guys are. Justin Evans is getting a lot of snaps at the minute, which is fair enough. He's a second round pick. You want to see what you have. You invested heavily in him in the draft. But the other three guys in Tandy, Chris Conti and TJ Ward are rotating. I don't like that. This is a team that struggled with communication and fundamental stuff. I think this is something that's just exacerbating that issue. It's not a particularly experienced team, so I understand why they might want Conti in there. He's been in the system for a while. He's an experienced player, but he's a very limited player in terms of his physical skill set. Ward, I think, should be possibly utilised. He shouldn't be in on an every down basis. I think Tandy should be the starter opposite Justin Evans at this point, with TJ Ward used in situations, and Conti should just be a backup. But they haven't done that. And that's the spot that concerns me for the Bucs in this one. If the Panthers have had success when they've been able to throw the ball deep, and the Buccaneers have been susceptible to the big play, partly because of a lack of pass rush. Now, I expect them to get pass rush in this game just because of the quality of the offensive line they're up against, particularly if Khalil is missing. I think Turner's going to play. You'd have to expect Gerald McCoy's going to have some success in this game. I think Ayers is going to beat Matt Khalil a good few times in this one. It'll be a question of whether they can play, rush better. Last week, Tyrod Taylor was able to escape a lot of pass rush situations. Well, the Buccaneers did a pretty good job getting the initial heat, weren't able to close out the play. Similar problems posed by Cam. I think they're going to have to try and bring the heat a bit more in this game. It's something they really should have been doing for the last few weeks. The pass rush just isn't getting home, and this is a team that I don't think threatens you too much over the middle of the field. You're going to see Christian McCaffrey making catches out wide, but you've got some good chase backers there. You should be able to deal with that if you're the Buccaneers. They don't offer an enormous threat over the top. You can bring guys down into the box to help with these things. With this run game, which isn't so much necessarily about helping with the run game, you should be able to deal with that the way this team's been running the ball. But to try and help contain Cam, I think that's going to be essential. If you're the Panthers, it's difficult to game plan with the way this line's playing, but I think you've got to utilise McCaffrey in that passing game. They've been happy to do so, and I think it's going to be another focal point. Buccaneers have given up a lot of yardage to running backs coming out of the backfield. Get him on the opposite side of Lavonte David, and I think you can have some success there. I think you want to keep testing Quan Alexander, try and get one-on-one tackling situations with him against McCaffrey and against Jonathan Stewart if possible. try and get Stewart into a rhythm early in the game. The Bucs have had problems stopping the run the last couple of weeks. Try and set the edge, get a couple of those runs where the Buccaneers have struggled with keeping contain, and be willing to use the option with Cam. If you can do that, then I think you can slow this pass rush down. Not that it needs much help being slowed down at this point. And then try and pick on guys over the top. The Buccaneers are small at the corner position. They are going to be disadvantaged against these receivers in jump ball situations. I'm not sure Brent Grimes is the guy to test because he tends to fare pretty well in those scenarios. But Vernon Hargreaves, he struggled for most of the year, had a bit of a bounce back week. Go at him, go underneath him, get those slant routes going, because he does play some very conservative off coverage. And I think the key will be how successful they can be with that underneath stuff. I think they're going to have to try and... The Bucs are likely going to do what they've been doing all year, and that's playing some pretty soft zonal type stuff. It's going to be down to Cam Newton to be disciplined, which... him and Jameis have the same problem. They both love to throw the ball deep when given half an opportunity. And the way the Bucs have been rushing, I think those opportunities will be there. I think Cam's got to rein it in, look for the right situations. Otherwise, you could see him throwing some more picks in this one. Even if the Buccaneers haven't been great at getting interceptions, I feel like the defence is set up to do so against a team like this. But that interior just has to show something. They're going to have to be willing to block. It's going to be down for me in this passing game to how effectively the tight ends and Jonathan Stewart can help out with pass pro, because at the end of the day, this line, as bad as Buccaneers pass rush should be, this line is going to cause some pressure, and you just can't afford to have Cam Newton continue taking these hits. He's starting to look like a player who's took too many hits. He's looking a little bit more skittish in the pocket. When Cam's at his best, he looks utterly fearless. He's willing to step up into the pocket, take big hits, take off on those crazy scrambles. I think he's been playing a little sheepish these last couple of weeks as a result of the pressure that he's been under. So you've just got to help these guys out, particularly Khalil on the left hand side. So expect to see maybe some 2 tight end sets, some of those 2 running back sets, not too many receivers running out on routes, and just trust that you guys are going to be able to get open underneath this Buccaneers soft zone and just keep Cam clean. And it will also help you with trying to establish a run game. They've got to get it going, because this receiving group I don't think is dynamic enough with the quality of pass protection that you can be a team that's dropping back 35-40 times a game and reliably score a large amount of points. To sort of summarise, if I'm the Panthers, feature McCaffrey, get him split out wide in the slot, have those 2 running back formations, have him move around, reveal what the Buccaneers are doing. When they're in the soft zones, you know what to do. Go underneath them. Try and get guys open down the side. See if the safety's late. That's when you take the deep shots. Try and establish those outside runs, because the Bucs have struggled with those. That may set you up to have some success on the inside. Don't necessarily rely on that, because I'm not sure it's going to be there against this team. And just try and test out the tackling of this Buccaneers team, because it was poor last week. Get guys in one-on-one situations, out in the flat, on those slant routes, and just force the Buccaneers to make plays. And just don't take too many chances if you're Cam Newton. Help him. Just help this line, because if he continues to take this beating, coming off an injury, I think it could have major long-term ramifications for this team. If you're the Bucs, be willing to play, I think, some cover 3 and some cover 1 in this game. I think the Panthers don't show enough speed outside for you to have to respect it for the entire game, and the Buccaneers have been playing incredibly soft, determined not to get beat deep, and they've still been getting beat deep. So change it up. If you're going to get beat deep, at least get beat deep on plays where you're supposed to, rather than ones where you're not. I think they've got to be a bit more willing to bring pressure. They've got Quan Alexander in there now. They've got Levante David, probably getting healthy. He's played well the last couple of weeks. Be willing to bring those guys. They're good blitzers, Levante David in particular. You've got to try and find some juice to this pass rush. I think you can find... the Panthers aren't a team that's going to get guys open early in routes, force them to dump it off to McCaffrey and swarm to him. I think that can serve you well, get you in some good third down situations, and then just play good defence from there. But I think if you make stopping McCaffrey the focal point, you're going to pay. They'll be able to go elsewhere. Just make sure there's eyes on him. Play those zones, but just mix it up. I want to see some 5-6 man pressures in this game, particularly on key downs, rather than just sitting there looking determined to play coverage and struggling to get some rush. And I think if they can just mix it up, make Cam Newton have to think, delay what he's doing, get this offensive line a bit confused, then they're going to have some success, and I think some turnovers will follow. On the other side of the ball, Buccaneers offense has really got going in the last couple of weeks. Well, not in the first half against the Cardinals, but their passing game, the numbers have been pretty solid throughout the year. Dynamic, of course, in terms of the weapons. Mike Evans is having a very solid season. Sean Jackson's doing a good job stretching the field, even if the connection with Jameis Winston's not been there. Cameron Brate's having a fine season. OJ Howard had a nice game last week. I'd expect to see him more heavily featured. The running back platoon, I think Doug Martin's looking sharp, but this offensive line is really struggling to run block. They've been okay in pass protection, not much more than that, but the run blocking has been a major problem for this team. And I think Jameis has had a solid season thus far, perhaps not the leap that many were expecting, particularly with the improvements that have been made, but he's been able to put yardage up. It's just the consistency is not there. He's still going through those cold spells. I think last week's game will hopefully be a sign of things to come for this team. As for the Panthers on the defensive side of the ball, the strength is, of course, this front seven. It sounds like Luke Kuechly is going to play in this one, which is, of course, huge. They're an entirely different prospect with him on the field. Like the defensive tackle group, Vernon Butler, Loti Lele's playing better this season after struggling last year for me. Quan Short's a high-end player. Charles Johnson, Mario Addison and Peppers have been doing a solid job off the edge. How healthy Peppers is, I'm not so sure. They've not been using much the last couple of weeks, even though they started the season pretty well. And you've got the linebacker core. If Kuechly plays, him, Davis, and Shaq Thompson, which is a good group. The secondary, it has been spotty. Bradbury and Worley, the two picks. Captain Munlam running around this, having rejoined the team. Mike Adams, Kurt Coleman. It's an experienced group other than those two young corners. And when the pressure's there, they're a really good team on the defensive side. I'm looking forward to this matchup. The other side, you've got two iffy spots. This should be two good units going at each other. I'm expecting the Panthers to generate quite a lot of pressure in this one. They've shown a willingness to blitz this year far more than we've seen previously. They've been pretty successful at it. They're tough to run on up the middle. Buccaneers are a team that looks to power run, so I think that favours the Panthers, and it's a weakness for the Bucs. It's a strength for the Panthers, so I'd expect them to fare pretty well there. The linebacker matchup against these tight ends for me is absolutely fascinating. Thomas Davis is a great player. He's got veteran smarts. I'd love to see the matchup between him and Cameron Brate, because I think Brate is a savvy kind of player. Again, not enormously physically talented, but he runs really good routes. Those two, I think, could have a really good battle. OJ Howard, I think, would be at risk at this point. I would actually, after the performance he had last week, expect Kuechly to be paying some attention to where he is on the field. Whether the Buccaneers can actually use this to their advantage, I'm not so sure. That'll be interesting. But for the last few weeks, I've been saying the key for the Bucs offense has been the tight ends. The Panthers do a pretty good job defending them. I'm not sure that's the way to go this week. I think you've got to go the opposite. Mike Evans and Deshaun Jackson are going to be the keys. They like to play man outside when they're blitzing, and the Bucs have those two star type receivers that they need to be able to take advantage of. Jameis is going to have to get that deep ball. He's going to have to be more consistent with it in terms of the hits. He's not been throwing them in dangerous spots too often. There was a horrible one last week, but it not being able to connect with Deshaun Jackson, I think there'll be opportunities for it this year. They're going to be huge because the opportunities against this Panthers team to get points need to be taken. I don't think the Bucs are going to have to put up a huge amount in this one because the Panthers' offence hasn't necessarily shown that ability. However, they've got to bear in mind it might be a possibility considering how poor their defence has played. But they're going to have some explosiveness. It's going to come from those guys. I can't see the Bucs having too much success in the run game in this one. I think we're going to see teams continuing to attempt to blitz this Bucs team. What the Bucs have to do is much like what they did last week, is have that success over the middle on those quick throws to the tight ends, getting the running backs on hot routes. It's the first time they've done it. It's been desperately needed, and they had a lot of success with those plays. I think they're going to have opportunities at that again, and they're going to have now. It'll be tougher because I think this Panthers group, particularly with Kuechly in there, I think it's less of a factor if he's not. But if he is, they're a really good group in coverage. So you got to be smart. You can't just assume that hot route's going to be there because these guys can take it away. And then with a guy like Kuechly, he can end up really punishing you with his athleticism and his ability to read the pass. So be smart with it. But I think those opportunities will be there. This team is going to bring the blitz. I've got no doubt about that, particularly up the A gaps. I think that's going to be the route they take. The defensive ends, they're going to like their matchup with Donovan Smith. I think DeMar Dotson's having a solid season on the right-hand side, so I think Smith's going to need some help. I expect to see OJ Howard. I would hope to see OJ Howard lined up on that side to help with the blocking in that regard. I want to see a lot of two tight end formations from this Bucs team as well. Both of these teams need to be able to protect their quarterback. The Bucs, of course, are going to probably need to have a very productive passing game to be successful. I want to see a balance like they attempted last week. It would be nice to see a bit more success in the run game, but I wouldn't be able to count on it. I think maybe mix Charles Sims in there because he gives you a little bit more explosiveness than Jaquiz Rogers or Doug Martin, more of an ability to hit the edge, which is again tough to do on this Panthers team. I think you've got to try and get guys to the second level. If they can get Lotulelei moving, get Kawan Short pursuing into the backfield, maybe they can have some success, try maybe some traps, some draws. They're not plays the Buccaneers use an enormous amount. I think they could have some success with that. But I think it's going to be guys winning the one-on-one matchups outside. We're talking, guys playing off on these guys, beating them underneath. When they come up, getting them over the top, finding those situations and take advantage. They're more talented, I think, than these corners. They should be able to have success and just have those tight ends in there, mix it up with those. Make the Panthers have to wonder, are they coming on routes? Are they staying into block? I think that's the strength this team has, the Buccaneers, in terms of the way they can match up because they can do so much with that tight end pairing. Adam Humphries, Chris Godwin, I think they're going to have their spots, but it's tough in the middle against this team. I think the Bucs need to try and stretch the field, utilise the matchups that they'll be able to generate, and just be a better matchup team than they've been over the start of this season. Rather than trying to do what they do last week, they did a great job with this. I think they've got to carry on in that vein, use that hurry up, try and win that chess match against the Panthers defense. If they can do that, I think they can get points. If you're the Panthers, as I've mentioned, blitzing up the A gap, I think you've got to. I think you have to do it because I think if they just sit back in coverage, I think the Buccaneers are going to be able to pick them apart. The pass rush is good, but I don't know if it's quite good enough where they'll be able to consistently cover all of these guys. And the Bucs have been very happy to send out a lot of guys in routes. I would like to see a bit more help for Jameis in protection. I'm just not sure it's something that we're going to see. I think they can take advantage of that. Constantly send one more man, and the Buccaneers can block, try and limit that explosive side of things by not giving Jameis Winston time to throw. He also sometimes struggles when he's under pressure, throwing hot, tries to make big plays happen. I think he can try and force turnovers. It's risky because with the talent of these guys on the outside, you can get burned, and the Bucs can be very productive, much like they were last week against the Bills. But you can also get the big errors. Jameis threw a pick last week, should have thrown another, got stripped, sacked. Those are the kind of impact plays that I think you can make by playing this way. force the Bucs to adjust to it, and then I think you're limiting what they're trying to do. I think the run game, the Bucs are going to try and go up the middle of the field. I don't think they're going to trust their guys to the outside. Be aware of that, and just the safeties are going to just have to play a good disciplined game at the back end, because we've seen a few busts on OJ Howard this year a couple of times. We've seen Cameron Brate wide open on a few occasions. The tight ends have been able to exploit poor safety play that thus far this year. If those two guys can stay disciplined and the two corners can hold up, I think the front seven of the Panthers can make enough plays to win this game. It's just going to be a question of how they can limit the explosive play, because I don't think the Bucs will be able to have long drives marching up and down the field in this one. So there you have it. That's my analysis of this game. Personally, I'm thinking the Buccaneers win this one, just because I can't see this Panthers team putting up too many points. As much as the Bucs have struggled, I think this is the kind of matchup they probably need against a team that's been offensively challenged, in particular in the run game, where the Bucs have been really poor in the last couple of weeks. As long as they can contain Cam Newton and get enough pressure off that front, I think they'll be able to come away with the win. I just think this offense looks like it's gotten into a bit of a rhythm. It's kind of figured itself out. They'll be able to get enough points. And I just think the offensive struggles on the Panthers side, I figure they're probably... I didn't see anything last week that made me think they weren't going to continue. So I've got the Bucs winning a close one. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. But I like the Buccaneers offense to just make a couple of big plays. They need this game that little bit more, although both teams are desperate, I feel, for a win in this one to get their season back on track. But yeah, Buccaneers edge this one, and I think it's going to be probably an ugly game, but I'm hoping to enjoy it. So there you go. Those are my thoughts. Let me know, what do you guys think? What do you think of the key matchups? How do you see this one going? As always, let us know. We've got the comment section down below, the Cover Zero Facebook page. You can find me on Twitter at Simon Conboy. Always happy to talk football, especially for me. This is my biggest grudge match of the year, the Panthers games. So really hoping we get this one. And yeah, it feels like the Panthers can end our season this year. So let's hope we get to keep it going till at least mid-season. As always, check out more of the show. Game reviews, previews going up all the time. We've got the Cover Zero Roundtable. It's kind of our flagship show every week, where we review and preview all of the games relevant to that week. Got mid-season coming up, so there'll be a bunch more stuff on the channel. If you can like, share, subscribe, check out the Patreon, it'd be greatly appreciated. Thank you so much for watching. It's been a pleasure as always. Have a great evening, and go Bucs.